welcome to Consumer Goods Technology. I'm Lisa Johnson, the Managing Editor of CGT, and I'm here today talking with John Acquista-Pace of Kraft Heinz and Wayne Acoca of Pactera Edge about the future of trade promotion management. So gentlemen, welcome, happy to have you. I was wondering if you could just start us out by telling us a little bit about yourself. John, why don't you go first?
I'm John Acquista-Pace. I'm the head of IT sales in Kraft Heinz. Prior to that, I was working in many different countries around Europe and in the world.
Okay. Thank you. Wayne, can you tell us a little bit about your background and about Pactera Edge?
Hello, Lisa. Hello, Gian. I'm Wayne Acoca, Program Director at Pactera's Edge CPG practice. Pactera Edge, as you know, is a digital technology service company where we bring together data, intelligence, and experience capabilities to design and build human-centric digital platforms.
Okay, great. So, John, why don't you start off the conversation by telling us a little bit, from your perspective, how has TPM been affected during the pandemic?
That is a great question, I have to say. Pandemic is an unprecedented time, so we have no history, and it was everything new for us. So from a certain point of view, the part that was most effective was the flexibility. So to have the opportunity to be able to manage this unprecedented demand and be able to respond real time without losing money and properly address all the requests has been, if you want, the main challenge during this period that never happened before.
Wayne, do you have anything to build off that? Anything else that you're seeing, from some of the other brands that you work with as well?
No, I mean, just in general, right? It's hard to predict something that never happened, at least in the Western Hemisphere, or customers we have in the Western Hemisphere. And adapting to that is one of the great lessons that most of the companies we work with have this year. And what data sources and what information they need to bring in to be even more automated and faster to react to those type of events.
Okay, so Wayne, building off that, so what are some of these primary challenges as we're heading into, sadly, what is year 2 of the pandemic?
I mean, from a higher level, there's a couple of points. One is, when you're using AI, its first requirement is information, right? And right now with the pandemic, it's obvious that we need to take into account in general more factors, right? And they have to be updated based on current data. That's for one. And we need to understand certain features of, machine learning or deep learning that are specific to pandemics, and studying what has happened in the past, maybe in Asia or in the Middle East, can inform of that. The second thing is a change in consumer behavior that this has impacted. At least we can see in America. The rise of e-commerce and grocery pickup versus traditional brick and mortar. The buying cycles are now different. Stockpiling means a totally different thing. And the availability of product versus your preference for a product is now also influencing your purchase cycle. So those are things that you have to start thinking about beyond just traditional metrics that you use for those type of platforms. And what it underlines for many of our customers is the importance of intelligent digital platforms. They're more important than ever because you have to be able to make decisions at speed and scale.
John, do you want to add to that?
What I would like to add is that the pandemic highlighted the fact of the digitalization in consumer goods is becoming very, very critical. Even if before was important, now it's becoming critical because this situation highlighted you cannot rely on people and how the people used to have their past experience. So you have to consider the help from artificial intelligence and other digital components that are now becoming part of our way of working. I have also to say that the KPIs that traditionally we were using, they've been expanding using macroeconomic and so on, that help us to be able to forecast better the future. And the pandemic period helped us to highlight this point and start to get this part inside our normal way of working now.
So given this, can you talk a little bit about what an ideal TPM platform would look like? What's important to know about it?
From the TPM point of view, knowing who are your customers, knowing how your customer works, where your customers are making money, where your customers are also treating the information, giving to you the information is important. So the capabilities of the TPM to connect with external, the capability to have artificial intelligence inside that is able to forecast the future and be able to have not just traditional KPIs or information in input, but also microeconomic or other part of information are becoming critical for TPM solution or platform, let me call in this moment.
Wayne, it sounded like you were going to agree with that. Do you want to build on
yeah,
that?
100% agree with John on that one. What I may want to add is the aspect of, regardless of the platform you're building, it has to really be human-centric in the sense that our belief and the aim of companies should be to build platforms that tell you what to do, right? In the case of TPO or TPM, it's hard for people at scale to guess what they have to do from a promotion standpoint. It's easier to leverage the cloud, the scalability of intelligent platforms to be able to tell you what are the suggested promotions you should run or whatnot, and what type of investment you have to make. I do agree with John on having multiple data sources, both qualitative and quantitative, put together in something that we call personally the data fabric, which brings all your data sources together so AI can leverage those and come up with those insights that drive your business at scale and more automatically than before.
Yeah, I have also to say that the data fabric, as is saying Wayne, is changing during the pandemic. As at the beginning, certain products were purchased much more than what is happening now. That is a different phase of the pandemic, where is a more second way of living, if you want. The pandemic is more a norm, and the way how the purchasers are purchasing items is different than at the beginning. So the TPM has been able to adapt to this kind of information quite rapidly that we were not used to do before.
Okay, so on that note, Wayne, what are some of the most, some of the biggest success factors to implementing such a platform?
For the first most important thing what we see from our customers is, creating human-centric experiences. You start with the user, what information you're first trying to extract from them, and how can you simplify their task? What's the benefit to them? Those are the people that have to input information and also extract information from your platform. So always start with them. That is no doubt. The end result doesn't necessarily drive the good practice upstream. I think there's also a balance that has to be struck between the user adoption and the accuracy of the model. And what I want to say is, generally when we talk to salespeople, one of their main ownership is the P&L, right? As a sales, you drive the forecast, you own your P&L. And when you're saying you need to trust a machine to do that, there's always some change management to be able to happen. And for that, when we discuss with our customers, what we see the most effectively is, if you want to drive change, your KPIs also have to change, your bonus and incentives have to change to be able to trust that machine, to be able to help you automate your tasks so you can focus on what you're really trying to do, which is sell, not forecast, it's selling.
John, do you have anything that you could build on
that? Wayne is bringing two very valid points, that is human-centric, that he mentioned it 3 or 4 times, and this is a very, very important concept, not just for TPM, in general of any digital solution. And the second component is the change management. Again, changing at the speed that now we have to change is becoming another important part. So any partner that help us has to be able to deliver solutions that are human-centric, that also help us in changing our organization and changing our way of working. That the two has to go together, otherwise it would be a problem.
Right. I think we'd all agree that, tech is wonderful. It can't solve everything, of course. It goes back to the people. And so, looking at the tech, there's certainly a lot of misconceptions surrounding artificial intelligence. I was wondering if you could share, talk about some of the complexities as they relate to TPM.
The complexity, let me say, artificial intelligence has to help the human for all the variables that they are able to elaborate and respond fast that a human is not capable to do. This is in simple term. In TPM, it's quite complex when you try to optimize, so more going to the TPO, your promotions, or when you are analyzing how your promotion returned your investment or not, because in that case the variables that you have to consider are quite high, and it's quite difficult for a human to or with simplistic systems that we used to have before to be able to come out with a correct plan or to able to analyze the plan that has been already consolidated. And in this one is where the artificial intelligence in the part of TPO or TPA is helping us to have a better promotion plans.
Wayne,
it's a
please
question
build on that.
And I agree 100% with John. It's a question of like how a lot of organizations they want to be data driven, right? But there's only so much you can do with Excel or like your classic tools, which are very narrow. And what John mentioned with like optimization and constraints and all those type of things is incredibly complex to even do just manually for a small subset. So if you want to do it at scale, that's where you can leverage AI and the power of cloud to be able to do that in minutes versus days manually. The other thing I would add, from what we've seen is the complexity of AI, first of all, always starts with data, right? The availability of independent data sources at the levels of granularity that you need them to be is complex, and it's tailored to your business, to your categories, right? Defining when you're using machine learning versus deep learning, when you're using machine learning, defining the correct features, fine-tuning is a lengthy process. You don't have like a good AI out of the box. That doesn't exist. There's a lot of work that has to be done with your customer to fine-tune those models. And then there is the pitfall of ML. It can tell you a lot of things, but you cannot overinterpret the results, right? And that's where you can fine-tune your machine learning algorithms to a certain point and a certain precision that the data dictates, but you cannot overcorrect it with business rules or additions on top of it. You have to truly let the data guide you. If it doesn't tell you what you want, then you haven't thought about all the features or different data sources that can help you inform and explain what has happened in the past to predict your future or your forecast.
Okay, thank you. And we're nearing the end of time, but you're leading perfectly into my next question. Was we like to leave our viewers with some best practices. So John, I was wondering, could you just share from the brand perspective, some best practices for TPM and TPO implementation?
We already said what are the best practices, because we said before to keep the human as at the center, independently if we use artificial intelligence or other technology to drive the implementation is the key point. Changing the way of working that is a legacy for several years is always challenging. And in an unprecedented time like this one, implementing a TPM, if you don't consider the change management component at the beginning of your project or any activity you want to do in that area, it could be a big problem. It's strange that I'm not putting something techy there, but in changing the way of working is more human, that needs to be at the center. And that, if you want, is the most important point to consider, as well as to plan ahead of any possible activity that you will incur during the development. Again, it's not specifically to TPM, it's general. But in TPM is when you touch directly with the money of your P&L, so it becomes even more important.
Hey, Wayne, how about you? Do you want to give us maybe the techie perspective?
No, but I agree 100% with what John says, because the technology sometimes is irrelevant to what you're trying to accomplish. And if you don't have the buy-in from the people that command you to do those platforms, or who who are going to use them, it's going to be very hard. From a more, specific standpoint, you want to unlock your competitive advantage, and the only way to do that is the availability of data, right, in any shape or form, and how you bring it together. That's an important step. Then, you need to have an agile implementation start to finish, right? If it's new, if TPM is new for an organization, it's something that they haven't thought of fully, and the discovery process actually will evolve over time throughout the project. So being agile really helps develop like an MVP, and then later on iterations on top of that. Identifying the correct stakeholders is also very important, for the client. So we make sure that the project is driven by people that understand the business and they know exactly what they want or what they're trying to achieve, and we can help them in that. And finally, for change management, one component we haven't touched upon is top-down alignment. If you're trying to do something bottoms up from an initiative of, John or me, for example, it's going to be hard. If you have top-down involvement, that's also where you drive change the correct way, which is says like, don't worry if your accuracy is not that great or your P&L is slightly impacted in a good or negative way, either or. We have your back. It's going to be okay. Your KPIs have been adjusted to do that. And that's also how you drive softer change than just saying, do something, trust it, and move on, right?
Great. Well, those are definitely strong advice to close us out with. So we are out of time. I'd like to thank you both for joining us. Just a reminder, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or to Pactera Edge. But for now, thank you for watching.